Rocking a little old school tonight.
Oh, yeah.
No overlay, no fancy things, just the raw episode. That's what we're here about. That being said, we do actually have a sort of a special announcement that we'll save for the end of this particular episode. But yeah, so tonight Donnie wanted to interview me about my book, Metroplex Monsters, which he's finally read. And what am I going to do? Say no to Donnie? I swear it was his idea.
It says
probably it's going to end up being a bit of a. This maybe end up being a bit of an apology for what's going to happen later tonight on his show.
All right. Look at the artwork, folks. Look at that artwork. All by all by the author. Okay. Yep. Real quick. So you and I have been friends for almost a year now. And
Has
when
it been
you
that
and I
long?
Yeah, I know this because the first show I ever did with you was also the first day of my job. So it's pretty easy to remember. So when you and I first met at the Dogman conference in Texas a few weeks ago, you and I were sitting at the table and I realized, dude, you wrote all these books and I haven't even read any. I felt like a bad friend, honestly. So
you should.
But
for many, many other reasons.
Yeah. At least I don't get smacked around, Mr. McLean.
That's true.
Yeah, Tex, be nice to this boy. Stop hitting him. Anyway, so I bought it with my own money too, and then when I bought it, Jason gave me a special autograph and a special illustration for the book, and then I finally got to sit down and read the book. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a very different book from what I expected from you.
Thank you.
Only because I thought there would be more Christian-y stuff.
Yeah, well, this is
published. There was a little bit.
Yeah,
there was a little bit.
Yeah, so I had to hide it in there a little bit because this is a different publisher. And this was actually one of their first sort of cryptid weird things. And apparently, and I haven't even counted. I've lost count of all the they keep coming back for illustrations for their eerie and creepy books now. I've lost track, but I think I'm over 8 different books for them. So apparently it worked. So
I read this in one sitting. It was a page turner.
Yeah,
I highly recommend you. I can't recommend this book enough, guys. And before we start actually talking about the content of the book, where can people get this if they haven't gotten it yet?
There is a link to Amazon below. However, let me do my spiel.
Okay.
Metroplex Monsters, Dallas Demons, Fort Worth Goatmen, and Other Terrors of the Trinity River. Available wherever fine books and trashy rags are sold. So yeah, you can, like I said, I've got the Amazon, but if you want to go to Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target, their websites specifically, like you're not going to go see this. Like you're not going to find this in a Walmart. However, people have found them at HEBs in the area, and some Barnes and Noble in the areas. I feel quite nice. I feel quite good about that. Specifically the HEB. But yeah, if you go to like Amazon or Barnes and Noble, you go to the websites, you'll be able to find the book.
Is there a link below?
Yeah, there's a link in the doobly-doo below.
Okay.
For Amazon
so folks,
specifically.
There's no excuse for not buying the book. And if you do not buy the book, you are not my friend. I hate you. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so Jason,
were you though? Were you really, Donnie?
No, not just mildly dislike is more like it. To be more accurate. Anyway, so reading this book, it's very okay. So the way I would describe it for someone, like if someone were to ask me after having read this, Donnie, what was this book? And if I didn't know you and I was just reviewing it, I'd be like, well, it's a collection of paranormal stories. It's also, and that's just probably like a third of the book. Yeah. The other third, I'd say, would be kind of giving the history of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And a lot of it is describing like the landscape and the topography of the area as well, because those details are important to understand what exactly is going on and how these cryptid experiences are related to these places in this one like centralized location. So typically, I know, Jason, you have that other show with Dr. Dean, right, on
Yeah.
Untold Radio, where
Yeah.
oftentimes you guys will get together and review movies, documentaries, and books. So I
Yes.
figured, why don't you and I do a book review? But of course, we are too busy to actually read whole books. So let's do a book that you've already written because you already know everything in the book inside and out, right?
That's fair. That's very
Okay.
fair. Yeah.
So let me ask you first question. Where did you get the idea for the book?
So honestly, it was a bit of a lark. I was kind of looking around. I'm like, you know what? I saw this publisher, History Press, Arcadia. They go by a couple different names. I was like, you know what? I always see these books, right? They have a very particular look to them. Most, I mean, you go to most grocery stores or bookstores, you'll see one of their books, right? They have that look to them, and so I was like, they're always like, I see them doing books on like Oak Cliff, which is an area in Dallas, right, where my dad grew up. I see them doing, the Dallas, and I see these books. I'm like, you know what? I wonder if they'll do something about cryptids in North Texas. So I call them up. They bite, and that was it. It was really just sort of a lark. I'm like, let me see if I can do this and actually get published. Right? That was really sort of the idea. So I pitched the idea to them. They actually liked it. I was like, oh crap, I need to write this book then. And so I started writing the book. It was a bit of an experience figuring out how to arrange the stories. But like it took me a year to do all the illustrations and writing, but mostly the actual research, because I didn't want to just tell stories. I wanted to actually research and get real, genuine information. Like, this book is the only book that exists, right? I gave one to Cliff Brockman for his museum, but it's the only book that exists that actually documents what happens after sort of the Lake Worth monster fervor dies down and everyone sort of forgets about it. Like, it's like everyone only talks about Lake Worth. There were encounters that happened later that year in Cedar Hill. This is the only book where that's documented. And I found them because the Cedar Hill Historical Society, there was a woman who actually did like the myths and things of Cedar Hill. And they had that in there. I was like, holy crap, literally no one knows this exists.
Yeah.
No one knows this. And it was that in doing that research, when I'm sitting here, doing this stuff about the Goatmen, right? Because I mean, we had plenty of Goatmen stories. I was able to get all of the different stories on sort of like right in front of me in the research. That's when I started having that revelation of, oh, hold on. This isn't what I think it is, right? Like, there's more going on here. So it was actually driving out to locations, talking to the historical societies, talking to people. Again, if you had told me when I first started this whole actual, like, the pterosaur research that I do, if you had told me that I was going to find like one person in my church who had seen one, actually two people in my church who had seen them in basically the same area, and I would find other people who had encountered things just by asking random people that I met, that like it wasn't hard to find these stories. That's the thing that freaked me out, is that while I'm doing the research, while I'm driving around, I just started talking to people. I cannot tell you how quickly people started telling stories as soon as they knew I was writing a book, and they're like, "Oh, you research this stuff? Cool. Well, let me tell you." And usually you would start with, have you seen or encountered anything weird?" That's all I had to say. Like the woman whose story about the pterosaur, she's driving her daughter into the creek. I did not prompt. That story was, "Have you seen anything weird?" She goes, "Well, you know what? I was driving," and that's the story that comes out. I'm like, holy crap. One dude, old One Eye, right? The dude who loses his fishing pole.
Yeah.
When I asked him if he'd seen anything weird, or if he'd ever seen anything weird in the lake, like I asked him about Old One Eye. He goes, "I never heard of Old One Eye." I'm like, "Oh, it's a lake monster. It's supposed to live there." He goes, "Well, let me tell you about this one story." So if you'd asked him if he'd ever seen Lake Monster, he'd been like, no. But when you hear the story and the thing's got an eye of the size of a dinner plate,
Mm-hmm.
and like a saucer, and he's like, yeah, no, it's he's like, well, this did happen. I'm like, how in the world did that not process as I saw a lake monster? Like, what did you think you were looking at that had an eye that damn big, right?
Yeah.
So it's, it was that was sort of the surprise was doing the research, going out to libraries and actually looking at their supplies, their old, their stuff, talking to the historical societies and getting that material. That was just the fun. Like you said, the cryptid stuff's only about a third of the book. A lot of it
Yeah.
is just the history, because this is a love letter to North Texas. And part of it was, I knew that's kind of what they wanted as a publisher, right?
Mm.
But also I thought, when am I ever going to get to talk about where I grew up this way?
Yep.
Right? Tell the story of DeSoto, Texas, the place where I lived, where I grew up. Right? When am I ever going to get to tell that story?
Yeah.
I'm never going to. I'm never going to get to tell people what Cedar Hill is, or why it's called Cedar Hill.
And you took me there.
Yeah.
I saw it. I was there with you.
Exactly. But
You
now,
showed me the antenna towers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, if you buy Metroplex Monsters, Dallas Demons, Fort Worth Goatmen, and other terrors of the Trinity River, you too can go to Cedar Hill, Texas, in your mind.
Oh yeah, and there are pictures too, photos.
Imagination. Okay. So yeah, like I said, it was sort of a lark, and it paid off. I mean, by paying it off, I mean it got published, and it's one of the few books I'm not proud of, but I'm happy with. I'm happier with it. Lots of stuff I don't like about it, but that's me being me.
Okay, so one of the first questions I asked you when I was looking through this book when we were at the convention, this book is very highly illustrated, people. There's like hold on. There's like a whole bunch of illustrations all done by Jason, right? It's pretty cool because it's a cryptid encounter, but then he actually draws them out, so you actually see what they look like. Of all the ones, which one would you say was your favorite?
The way it turned out, or doing it?
Yeah. Both.
Actually, I think it's probably this. Actually, I think it's probably the same one. Bobby Grashel's encounter on page 32. That one.
Oh, this one? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite. I think that's my favorite illustration. The way it turned out. Just, I think it's my personal favorite. That's your favorite?
No, I'm just like, I know where you got the inspiration for this picture, by the way.
Okay, where?
Dude, you drew Randy, didn't you?
I didn't know Randy.
Oh.
Oh yeah. No, this book was published.
This kind of looks like Randy.
It does kind of look like Randy.
It kind of does, man. I thought you made like a Bigfoot Randy.
No, I met Randy and Tex after the book had already been published.
This is you drawing your pterosaur?
Yeah. Although that's technically not mine, because it has a crest. Yeah. That's the one that was done. That was the one that was filmed. Yeah. That's the one that was seen in Fort Worth. So funny story about that one. The guy who saw it, right? He calls up Joe Taylor of the Mount Blanco Fossil Museum.
Yeah.
And this is why someone's like, hey, you got to hear this encounter. And Joe Taylor tells him, yeah, there's a guy not too far from where you were who saw one. He was talking about me because I'd known Joe Taylor for several years by that point.
Yeah.
So I show up in my own story completely by accident.
Whoa. It's like kind of like.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's like breaking the fourth wall. Also, folks, there are photos taken by the author of the area. And for me, I guess this book was particularly enjoyable for me because all the places you were describing, you had already taken me there.
Yeah, a lot.
So I'm like, you're describing these locations and where these events happen. I was like, oh crap, Jason took me there.
Oh, real quick. No, I didn't remember. It's just written on the bottom of the page. Right there.
I mean, he did draw them all.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't remember the page numbers. They're just on the bottom.
What was the most? What was it more? So it wasn't the actual writing or the illustration that was the most challenging. It was actually going around researching, interviewing people, going around talking to people. That was the main, I guess, labor of
I,
love for this book.
well, I wouldn't even say that. Yeah, that wasn't even necessarily the hardest. That was the most labor intensive. I think the hardest was trying to figure out where to put each story and how to arrange the book, right?
Hmm.
How to tell that narrative. Like that honestly probably cost me more time
Hmm.
than anything else. That's why I started breaking up everything into like sections where it's like, because like, do I cover everything that happens in Fort Worth,
Hmm.
or do I break them up by cryptid? Right? Like
Yeah.
that's one of the problems I started having to figure out, was how to break it up. And that was probably the hardest part of the whole thing, was figuring out how to tell the stories and how to sort of convey them in a way that made sense to the reader,
Hmm.
that didn't feel just like, so yeah, that was probably the hardest one, was trying to figure out how to do that. That was probably the absolute most difficult. But like I
I could
said,
tell.
traveling and like that, yeah, it was in labor intensive, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, because for those of you listening at home, the chapters themselves are all like divided up into like subsections. Where one section it'll be a lot of times it'll start off describing like some historical aspect of what went down in Dallas, which is all very well explained. And I got to tell you, Jason, not just because you're my friend, but if you were to ask me after reading this, and if I didn't know you,
Mhm.
what do you get? What do you think of the writer? I would say he's got real good economy of words
Thank you.
because none of your explanations go on too long.
Hmm.
Um, It's just the right amount of words, and especially with your stories, they flow very well. It's not a very thick book, so it's a very quick read, and, especially if you're a guy like me who's got, like, borderline ADD, this is the perfect kind of book, because yeah, it's got a good flow to it. The stories, the encounters, the way they're written, again, very efficiently written.
Thank you.
Because the whole time I was like, "Man, Jason's an efficient writer."
I try to
Um,
be, actually. It's one of the things I've actually tried to cultivate over the years, is how to, because which is why all my things are always so short. I want
yeah,
them. I think if you need 900 pages to tell your story, you should have your typewriter broken. Um, so that's why a lot of my stuff is so short, is because I try to be like, don't gild the lily if it's unnecessary. Just get to the point, tell me what I need to know, and so we can move on and to
yeah.
the more interesting stuff.
Yeah, and even like with the historical stuff,
Mhm.
that has to flow, and
Yeah,
especially when you're talking about the landscape and the rivers and the
yeah.
wilderness, that has to flow. That has to be done efficiently because otherwise people could get bogged down with the details.
Mhm.
And for those of you, if you live in the North Texas area and you're at all interested in cryptids, this is probably the book to get.
And if you don't live in North Texas and are interested in cryptids, you should get it. In fact, you should get a book for everyone you know, or two.
Yes, yes.
Great for leveling tables, beating people, killing
Hmm.
spiders.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Can I tell you about my favorite chapter in the book or my favorite story personally?
No, no.
Okay, fine, never mind. No, okay. This one, the
Oh, the
Lechuza.
Lechusa?
Yeah, you know why I like this chapter a lot? Because there are a couple points here that kind of blew my mind, like
Okay.
legitimately. Okay. One of them was the fact that when you start comparing like the North Texas area to Mesopotamia, and it's like a confluence of like, the
Mhm.
Tigris and the Euphrates, I'm like, oh like my mind was blown. I was like, yo, this Texas is sort of like Mesopotamia.
You want to hear something wild? I don't remember if I put it in. I don't think I did. But you want to hear
Yeah.
something wild? Dallas is on the same latitude. Yeah, I always get
I remember
longitude,
that
latitude
part.
reversed. Yeah, it's on the same latitude as Jerusalem.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's weird, man. It's
It's
weird.
weird. It's weird. That part kind of blew me away. Just because I never thought of it that way.
Hmm.
And then that was the one chapter where you go into like ancient history. You were going into like biblical mythology. You were talking about
Hmm.
Lilith, the
Yep.
Lechuza, right? I remember you had. I remember listening to you. I don't even remember if I was with you on that podcast. We've done so many at this
Yeah.
point, but yeah, I do remember you talking about Lilith, and I just couldn't help thinking of all the people who were like, well, Lilith was the first wife of Adam, and then you're like, nope,
Nope.
never mind.
That was invented just a few hundred years ago in Germany.
Yeah.
It's always fun to go and actually, get into the details of things.
Also, the story of the Lechuza, that actual encounter was
Mhm.
pretty freaky deaky.
Yeah.
That was there were several very intense encounter stories.
Yeah. Some of them are really, like you said, very intense. That one, what about the one where the woman is being chased around the house by a possible Bigfoot kind of a thing?
Yeah, like it busted in her house. And I'm like, Bigfoot can do that?
See, honestly, if I were writing it now, I think there's a few points where I'm like, I don't think this is a Bigfoot, like at all.
Yeah, no, it was very clear that a lot
Mhm.
of these cryptid encounters where people would think it was a Bigfoot, it was pretty clear from the writer's perspective that it wasn't. You
Mhm.
do spend a lot of time talking about Goatman encounters.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that,
Sure.
because
Real
that's a
quick,
big chunk of the book.
to Texas or to Crystal. No, we are not like mesothelioma. And it again, spell check got in the way. We get it. Only in that we both sit on profound amounts of limestone, and
Mhm.
all of our water comes from rivers, not like we don't have natural lakes here. We don't have wells. Like there's a lot of connection there. And again, we're on the same longitude or latitude. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's a weird connection. And but yeah, in a lot of ways. We don't have the palm trees, so we got that. Yeah, that's a
Do they have
difference.
palm trees over there?
I believe so.
Hmm.
I don't know. I thought so.
So
Anyway, yeah,
the lake.
Goat Man.
Okay, you start the book with the Lake Worth monster, and then you
Mhm.
describe how it there are encounters in that area afterwards. But then it kind of leans, especially with the descriptions and the illustrations, that this thing wasn't a Bigfoot. It was something else. Not quite a dog man,
Mhm.
not quite a
Mhm.
Bigfoot, something else, right?
So that's where it gets weird. So really, this is where where things get odd. The problem is, okay. So hold on, real quick. Glenn, not technically here, but those do exist here in the U.S. They're further out west. But so okay, so I'm fairly sold on the idea that the initial encounter at Lake Worth is a Bigfoot, right? And there's plenty
Hmm.
of reason to think that the Bigfoot phenomena has been in the area for people have talked about it. They just called it the monster, the creature, things like that. However, as the story of the goat man gets out, things radically change and people start seeing actual goat men, and they start seeing other creatures. And the thing is, once you kind of get away from like the thing that's actually named like Old Alton Bridge or White Rock Lake, the creatures that are seen seem to lose their goatness
Hmm.
and become more almost like an alien,
Hmm.
or what we would call a gray or a slender man, where they're just very lean,
Yep.
um almost featureless in a lot of ways except for the eyes. It's weird, like it really
Kind of
is.
like how you do this
Yeah.
illustration here, right?
Yeah. But they retain their backwards facing legs, but they
Yeah.
don't seem to have like the one. Yeah, they retain their backwards facing legs, but they lose the horns. Yeah, like
Yep.
that creature there.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was like less than half a mile from um, the old Alton Bridge. And here's the thing: I actually drove on that road. I got that account after I had gone to Old Alton Bridge and taken all the photographs and stuff out there. I got that report later. I'm like, I literally turned around at the intersection that this guy saw that thing.
Hmm.
So I was like, wait. I was like, wait a minute. I was there. I drove right by this thing, or about right by this location. I wish I'd known. I would have taken a picture. Um, but yeah, like as soon as you get away from their, like it's the bridge or White Rock Lake proper, they seem to lose those features and they become something else. But yeah, and the Goatman mythology ties well into a lot of the Czechoslovakian cultures in the area. A lot of people don't know this, but a lot of people from Czechoslovakia migrated to Texas. Not too far from here, there was a huge group out in West. It's called West.
Yeah.
That's its name. You have to stop by next time you're here. I'll have to take you down there. But it's right south on 35 from Dallas. That's where you go and you get your klobasniks. And if you're in the know, if you're not in the know, I can't help you. But it's all Czechoslovakian. So for those who don't know, Eastern Europe has the tradition of Krampus, and yeah, the Krampus stuff. It absolutely informs the Goatman mythology. It absolutely
There it
does.
is. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see it? It's hard to.
Yeah, it is hard, isn't it? Yeah.
It's kind of hard. You know what? The other part that I thought was pretty wild was the Knights Templar stuff that you mentioned briefly, where I was
thank you.
the Knights Templar, they were occultists. I thought they were holy fighters, fighting for our.
Well, thank you, Horace.
They were involved in some nasty business, huh?
Oh yeah. Well, and again, it's possible that's all, historical revisionism, but I mean the problem is, like, the more you get into it, the more that stuff does pop up. Like, you just can't avoid it. And it's like, look, this is there. Like, that's been there for a long time. And again, the idea of the goat man, that form goes all the way back essentially to Enkidu, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's technically the legs are of a bull, I'm like, it's the same form. It's the same idea. It's the same thought. So yeah, this is just a very, very old phenomena, and it just seems to keep creeping its way into our consciousness.
And I do see where a lot of the genesis of your, I guess, viewpoint on these cryptid encounters comes from, because, on multiple podcasts lately, you've expressed your view that these cryptids are not what they appear.
Yeah.
I could see where that attitude kind of took form with this book, because a lot of these encounters and these creatures are questionable, right?
Yeah.
You're not quite sure what it is, or, there's definitely a supernatural aspect to a lot of these creatures, right?
Yeah.
And there's an intelligence.
Yep.
And
that's,
yeah.
Well, and again, I think like I keep saying, folklore is not phenomena. And like, again, when you actually stop and do this hard research, and you're looking at very specific not just a case by case basis, but you're looking at broader lore, and you get actual accounts from the area, I started noticing very distinctly there was a difference between what people actually see and what people say is seen. And once I saw that, like, I couldn't unsee it anymore. I couldn't step away from that. And like you said, yeah, this and a lot of work that we've done on Texas Front Porch early on really reshaped how I think about a lot of this. Because I would say, getting into it, I was more on the physical side for everything, sort of like that classical cryptozoological. Because again, I still think what I saw was a living, breathing creature, right?
Yeah.
It's the easiest explanation in a lot of ways, particularly considering it's seen the consistency of the observations throughout the centuries. It just makes more sense that that's what's being seen. Whereas with these other creatures, the problem is, I have a problem when I got a Bigfoot in this creek, but then I got a dog man in this creek, and then I got a hinky man in this creek, and I'm like, I got problems with that, right? It's not it's not I have these overlaps, and then when you start getting away from like that center of where the folklore is, it retains that same sort of overall shape, but not the details. It just makes me wonder if maybe, again, it's like, how can you not? You can't unsee that fact. And it's like, once you get away from the center of the story, it seems to be more,
especially that Lechuza one, because you're like, is that one is like, you can't even tell if that's just going on in the witness's like perception, right?
Well, except for the fact that it's seen by two other, or it's
because it chased her friend.
Yeah, her friend freaked out. So again, could her friend even see it? We don't know because she
By
didn't
the way,
say it.
guys, for those of you who
Yeah.
didn't read, the Lechuza was this like
Yeah.
winged creature, but it had the face of a human woman, which is
Yeah. Body of an
yeah.
owl. Like, but again, like
Yeah.
like an owl the size of a human, woman's face. Yeah. Here.
I'll
Let me,
find it.
yeah.
I got it.
You got it? Okay. So yeah, long story short, it's so essentially imagine it's the siren, it's Lilith, it's the same thing. It's a massive
Yeah,
owl.
some girl
Yeah.
actually got chased down by this thing, and then
Yeah,
I think it
with
was
the
her
face of a
grandma
woman.
came out and confronted it.
It's her aunt who is the Kurandara
Mhm.
for South Oak Cliff at the time. And if
This
you don't know
one,
what,
did you actually talk to the person who encountered this?
yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No,
Whoa,
I showed her that picture and freaked her the F out.
whoa.
Yeah, like this is not a single story in that book is secondhand. Not one.
So
I
you
don't
actually
do
met everyone who,
everyone.
like that
Yes.
one couple that got terrorized by that goat man outside their
Mhm.
house.
Yeah.
Bam.
Okay. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase this. The only account that is secondhand is oh, what's her name? It's one of the Goatmen stories. It's the one where she's jogging around White Rock Lake. I forget her name. Sally Ann. Where'd he go?
Oh yeah, the lady who was
Yeah.
jogging. Yeah.
Sandy Grace. Yeah. Okay, so the Sandy Grace story.
Yeah.
That's a fairly famous story. Sandy Grace's story is secondhand to me because it comes
Oh,
from
see, I was going to ask you if you knew her.
no, I don't. But wow, my camera's hold on. All right, camera's
It's
being
only
weird.
because she was looking kind of hot in that picture. And I was like, "Yo, Jason, is she single? She someone you know?" I mean,
It's
throw them
man,
digits my way. I'll
hold on,
come
let me
for
turn off
her.
there we go. I'll just turn that off because it's
Why did
having
your camera get so bright all of a sudden?
I think the problem is it white balance, but then it wouldn't unwhite balance.
Mm,
So but anyway, yeah, so Sandy Grace is like the only story that's secondhand. Everything else is firsthand because I didn't want to do, and this book could have been twice as thick as far as stories go.
yeah.
Honestly, I chose not to go with a lot of stories because I didn't feel comfortable with them. I didn't feel like they were maybe
Hmm.
100%, or there was some. I felt like there were holes. So it is very much a curated story.
Can you tell us about any stories that almost made it in?
Okay, there's one story I've sort of shared this real quick.
Mhm.
Dennison asks, an entity that manifests itself in different aspects to different people. Yes, essentially, it's what it is. If you listen over on Mysterious Library, this is an idea that the idea of co-creation that Dean and I have talked about. This is where things get weird, right? It's almost like these things are taking the form of things we expect, or is highly dependent on the lore of an area. So that does seem to happen. One story I've alluded to this particular encounter several times, but honestly, it's the wildest story that I believe. I just didn't feel comfortable putting in the book. Um, it happens where I live now. I have to stay vague for a number of reasons. I try to avoid details. Anyway, 3 different people encounter an entity surrounding a particular house. Unbeknownst to the other 3 people, the father who lived in that house is known to me, and I worked with him because he was having sleep paralysis issues,
Mhm.
and he was seeing the sleep paralysis demons. His daughter one night saw a large black creature walk through the hallway and go into his room one night. A little girl who had never seen aliens before, around that same time, looked out her window one night. She woke up in the middle of the night, looks outside, and what she described was essentially like, imagine a xenomorph but with large eyes and razor sharp teeth, like a anglerfish, right? Now, it doesn't have all the details, but just that's the best way to think of it, right?
And other people saw this around the house outside of the family.
Yes. So, like, there's the father who's having these sleep paralysis events, right? His daughter, who lives in the house, obviously, sees a dark creature go into his room one night while this is all going on. A separate little girl who lived who lived next door saw it in by the street light, and it was in the street in front of his house. Freaked her out. I mean, hard. Like, this girl was shaken, but had like angler, like, again, the easiest way is just imagine a streamlined xenomorph, but with a slightly shorter head, but big eyes and anglerfish teeth. Another individual, this one was older, right? An older, I think he was a teenager at the time. Again, in a house next to this other family's, where they are, the lights from the stadium, right? When they were on, just would illuminate their backyard, right? So this is another neighbor of the guy who's having the encounters. Part of their fence had blown of this kid, this teenager. Part of the fence had blown down because of the storms, right? That happened. So he had his dogs out there on tethers. So they could use the restroom and do whatever, but he just didn't want them to run away. Well, all of a sudden he starts hearing barking, and because he was heading out to let them in anyway, but he just hears them going nuts, and he looks out, and across the backyard he sees a creature that he describes. He's like, I know this sounds crazy, but it was like like one of those xenomorphs from the Alien movies. That's how he described it. He goes, but it had big round eyes and razor sharp teeth. And he's like, I freaked out. I grabbed the dogs. I pulled them inside. He's like, my family was gone, but I brought them all up into, I locked the doors, ran up to the stairs, got my dad's gun. And like, that's where the parents found him, was in the bedroom, in their parents' bedroom with the gun, because he's like, I saw this thing and I don't know what to do. So what we have is this father who's having these sleep paralysis and events, and he's seeing the sleep paralysis demons. His daughter sees a dark entity go into his room, and then two other people, not related, see a creature that are described similarly, and they did not talk about this. They didn't know that this event had happened to the other. Flash forward a few years from this encounter, I'm talking with Ken Gerhardt, and I'm like, hey, Ken, I sent him some of the drawings that I did. I'm like, I have two different accounts now of this creature in the same, like, surrounding this house. This father's going through this now. The father no longer has these encounters. I helped him. We got him over it. We're done, right? So it doesn't seem to be happening anymore. But I said, hey, do you have absolutely anything, accounts of anything like this at all? He goes, again, no details, but essentially, yes. He confirmed that he had an individual that had seen a creature just like that south of here. Now, clearly, this isn't something that can exist as a naturally existing creature. Like, this isn't a dog or a cat. This is something that clearly is supernatural, not just because it doesn't look like something that could exist on Earth. Because of the story surrounding it, it's clearly supernatural. But, like, what do you do with that? Like, what is it? Right. So and the more I think about it, it's even after writing the book, one of the things I thought of is these things, it still had backward facing legs. Like the creatures that are seen around White Rock Lake, but aren't at White Rock Lake, where you get like a mile or two removed, they still have those backward facing legs. So I don't know what to do with that, but that's the wildest story that didn't make it into the book.
Kind of wish it had now.
Well, the thing is, if I were to put the enough details in there, you could absolutely track down who this person was. And who the family members were. So yeah, I'd like, in order to really tell the story properly, it would be, for it to have the credibility it should have, you would be able to track down this family. So I didn't want to do that.
Can I go into one criticism I had of the book?
Yeah, please.
The only criticism was the order of the chapters.
Okay.
It was because you had the aquatic anomalies, basically
Yeah.
the sea creatures or
Yeah.
the aquatic
Mhm.
creatures, aquatic cryptids. You had that at the very last chapter,
Mhm.
which kind of bummed me out because then the very last cryptid you mentioned before the book ends is giant catfish. You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
can see. Yeah, I can see that. Well,
I
okay. So here's the thing. Okay, no, finish
I
your
was
comment.
I was thinking you do the because you had the dragons one with the
Yeah.
pterosaur chapter,
Mhm.
and then you had the lechuza one, right?
Mhm.
If that were me, I would have swapped those.
I get it.
Yeah, because the aquatic anomalies also lends very well into like again the waterways of Texas. It
Yeah.
goes into like setting the scenario of like, okay, there's these bodies of water. This is how
Mhm.
it goes, establishing the topography and
Yeah.
the layout of the place, right? I feel like that would have been better in the beginning of the book. And then because the
Yeah.
Lechuza one kind of goes into more like ancient history.
I can see that.
Yeah, that was the only thing. But other than that,
Yeah.
I just would have changed the chapter order.
No, and that's fair. Like I said, that was, and again, that was genuinely the hardest problem that I had with the book was how to
Yeah.
where to put them, how to tell that
Mhm.
story. Um, Let me see if my camera's fixed itself yet. If it'll. Nope. Okay, we'll live with it. Um, I will say this. I think the um part of why I have it at the end is because honestly, the giant catfish stuff and the giant alligator gar is my favorite stuff.
Oh, that's your favorite stuff?
Oh yeah,
Wow.
yeah. It really is my favorite stuff just because it connects me the most with my father. Because
Mm,
we used to go fishing all the time
mm.
and catfish and stories about the alligator gar. When he was a kid. So in many ways, it was a lot more sentimental. So that's
And
why I ended there.
you do love yourself some sea monsters.
I do.
You do love you some sea monsters.
Yep. They're honestly my favorite thing. Like everyone's like, but don't I see it on the Bigfoot stuff? I really don't consider myself much of a Bigfooter, but you saw a pterosaur. You're right. I saw a pterosaur. Doesn't mean they're my favorite stuff. I love sea monsters.
I get it.
Yeah,
I
they're
get
just
it.
my favorite thing.
There's a special place in my heart for Megalodon, and I keep begging you to do an episode on Megalodon on my
Well,
show, and
yeah,
we will do it. It's going to
yeah.
happen.
Yes, we'll do a Megalodon show on your channel.
And you know my title I already showed you.
I know.
The
I know.
greatest title. The
It
greatest
really,
title.
it really is. It's probably the greatest title
And
that
I
we'll
already
ever.
got the thumbnail loaded. Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be so good.
Danny is correct. Everything ends better with a fish fry. It's 100% correct. And the best type of fish to fry, crappie and
Hmm.
perch. Very, very sweet. It's a white fish, but it's very, very sweet. So yeah, the fried with some hot sauce doesn't get
Quick
better than that.
quick aside.
Mhm.
Did you ever wind up watching that video I sent you with the Ukrainian soldiers opening their MREs?
No, I haven't had a chance to watch that.
Dude, that it like befuddled me. I was
Mhm.
befuddled. And I saw that like 30 minutes before like my live show, but then all I could think about was what I saw in those MREs. I couldn't stop thinking about it. So they look like regular MREs, right? It's like all
Mhm.
sealed and
Yeah.
everything. And these Ukrainian soldiers are like, "Oh man, we're going to get the good stuff." And they open the
Mhm.
bag, like they have to cut it open with a knife. Inside
Yeah.
are live crayfish. And they're like, "Yes." And I'm like, "One,
How?
how?
Yeah, how?
How?"
How?
I was like
That's gotta be a
befuddled.
put on. That's gotta be a put. That can't be real.
And they were moving. And they had like this little plastic bin, and they're like, "Oh yes," they're all happy, and they dump it out, and these crayfish are moving in there. It's an MRE. It's sealed.
That
And
can't
I'm
be
just
real.
like staring at that blew my mind harder than Bigfoot.
Okay, I'm gonna call BS. I will find the video, but
I'll
I
send you
can't
the
believe
video.
that.
I
Yeah,
was befuddled. I was
that can't
befuddled.
be real. That can't be real. I don't buy that at all. There's no way. There's no way you're keeping
And then
these things alive.
they open up another like one of those bags in their MREs. I have
Mhm.
this weird fascination with MREs for some reason. And they
I
take
get
it
it.
out, and it's just like two whole fish. and then a thing of live crayfish.
Mm-mm.
And I'm just like, what?
I don't buy it. Yeah, I'll watch it. I don't. There's no
I couldn't
way.
stop
There's
thinking about
no
it.
way.
I couldn't stop thinking about it. It looked like a bluegill. It was like 2 bluegills, just straight up whole fish.
Okay, bluegill. Well, again, bluegill and crappie, they're related species. They're both, but yeah, different. They are different, but they're related. They're I
Yeah.
forget what they're called. They're all part of this cichlids, whatever. But they're all part of the same family. But yeah, bluegill. I mean,
Yeah.
the prettiest bluegill I've ever seen in the state of Texas that I've ever caught, Holly Lake. It's in East Texas. It's basically a private lake. It is the most beautiful bluegill I've ever seen in my life. They also had sun perch there. I mean, just I don't know what it is, but those bluegill were stunning. I mean, almost a neon blue pattern around their gills.
Do you still go fishing sometimes?
I have not been fishing in a long time. I'm looking to take probably next year, take some time off, and I'll take the kids fishing again.
I don't do fishing because I don't like touching like worms. They're icky. They're gross. It's like touching a booger, but it's moving. Ew.
So I shouldn't tell you about blood bait for catfish.
What is that?
That's what it sounds like.
Blood bait?
Yeah.
Just blood?
It's blood that's been congealed in a medium. I think it's usually some form of cornmeal. It becomes like a paste.
Mm-hmm.
And you basically mold it onto your treble hook. And that's what you catch. A lot of people though use liver. But that was back when liver was actually cheap. Now everyone's eating liver because they're like, it'll make me strong. Yeah, stink bait, same thing. Griff says stink. Yeah, blood bait, stink bait's basically the same thing. But yeah, it smells to high heaven. It is the worst smelling thing you'll ever, because catfish are trash fish. That's what they are. That's why you can't. Yeah. They're trash fish.
But they taste good, apparently. I never tried it. Tex was supposed to take me to try it for the first time, but we never got the opportunity.
So here's the thing about catfish. Farmed catfish taste fine. Real catfish caught in the wild taste like dirt because they're filter feeders. Like they eat, not filter feeders, they eat trash. That's what they are. That's why the Jews can't eat them. They have skin instead of scales, right? Because they're scavengers. They clean up all the trash in the waterway. So yeah, if you're eating a catfish in the wild, it will taste like dirt. Now people are like, well, if you did this, if you can prepare it right, you can prepare it right, but it still doesn't taste as good as farmed.
Anything tastes
catfish.
Fine if you prepare it right.
And that's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like you got to work real hard to prepare catfish properly. So yeah. So any other questions or thoughts or comments before we get into our announcement?
I really enjoyed this book. Not just that you're my friend, but even if I didn't know you and I read this, I thought it was a real fun read.
Thank you.
And also just the illustrations. You know, there is an advantage to being an illustrator and an author, right? You got to. So it was real cool to see. And yeah, I recommend everyone go check it out. I think Jason has a lot to be proud about this book. The cool designs and everything. Everything's well written, well put together. The stories, the explanations are, again, very efficiently worded. It just flows, right? It's a very easy read. So
thank you. People
go check it out.
Thank you, Donnie. I know, I appreciate that. I really do. So like you said, we had an announcement. And honestly, if I look back over the last while, I think this has probably been building for the last couple of months. I think I've been fighting it a lot. But I can't fight it anymore. I am going to step away from the podcast creation field and go back to doing art and books. That's what my focus will be. That being said, I'm not going anywhere. Like I'm still going to be I'll still guest host if needed be, and I'll be a guest on people's shows. but yeah, after this, by the way, I'm going over with Donnie where I'm going to be yelling at him on his channel um tonight. So and this is not the last show. Please understand, this is not my last
Mm-hmm.
show. We have 2 more weeks. I've got John from the Lost World Museum. We met him quite
That
by
was a cool
accident.
time. That was
It
a
was
cool
cool.
time.
Yeah, we met him entirely by accident, and so I'm getting him on the show.
Wait, John
And
was
then
the older gentleman or the
no.
younger
So
guy?
Dr. Boz is the one who runs the Creation
Yeah.
Evidence Museum. John was there was an older man
He
with
was the guy
he
we
was
met in the
bald.
parking lot. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he
Yeah,
had
yeah.
his wife had the camera,
Yeah.
and they were doing the
Yeah.
filming. Yeah, that's him. So he's going to come on, and then the following week is going to be Donnie, Randy, and Rob, all my co-hosts that we've had for JMQE. Tex obviously can't be there. We will rectify that like the following week or the following Monday, and we'll just it's going to be a hangout, just me and my co-hosts doing one last round, as they say, and just sort of talking. I don't know when I will be leaving Mysterious Library. It'll be in the month of October. I may be all the way through Halloween, or it may end sooner, or my tenure may end sooner than that. I haven't worked out that date yet, but
Mm-hmm.
I am stepping away from creating podcast material, and literally everyone in the world is telling me, "Why are you doing this? This is nuts, and you're great at it, and we love you." And I really do appreciate that. But I feel like I just feel like I need to go back to doing artwork and books. I feel that's where I should be. And it's not like it's a forever thing per se. I may come back into this space. I may come back to this channel. I've not decided to get rid of the channel at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I may even come back to this channel at some point. I don't know. Nothing's, they say never, right?
And don't worry, guys, you'll definitely be seeing Jason's face on my show. He's not going away forever. I am going to make sure that he gets sucked back in. I'm gonna suck him back in.
Oh, please don't say that. Don't say that. That is, or at least please choose some different language. That's just so bad. That's so bad. Real quick, Griff, it's available basically anywhere fine documents and trashy rags are sold, but I do have a link in the doobly-doo below for Amazon, but you can find it pretty much at any major dealer. So again, it's Glenn, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Griff, thank you. I do appreciate that. I really do. Like I said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm like, y'all aren't getting rid of me by any stretch of the imagination. I'm still going to be doing a lot of guest spots. Only now you'll have things like, you know what, Glenn? Cryptid trading cards may not be out of the realm of possibility.
I bet you someone's already thought of it.
I've already kind of done stuff like that in the past. Oh, they were postcards.
Oh.
They were postcards way back in the day. But yeah, like, don't get me wrong, that stuff may occur, but I'm definitely, so I don't want to say too much about what I'm doing. But I will say this. I'm working on a comic. It's being colored right now. There was a kid that, friend of a friend kind of a thing. We wanted to, let him cut his teeth on a comic. So there is a comic coming. I will make an announcement once that's known. I got Choopy Rules, for those who remember the short-lived Choopy Rules stuff I was doing. That's literally the next book I'm working on. Well, after I get done with the stuff for Arcadia, that's my next full-blown book. It's going to be funny. There's a lot of art. Again, I'm tightening up the script on that right now to get out. I wanted to have it out earlier, but Project X has taken up so much time and has gone not where I wanted it to go, but it is what it is. Maybe we'll see some fruition of that in the next year. But yeah, like, so there's like, y'all aren't getting rid of me by any stretch of the imagination. Like, trust me, you're going to get Choopy Rules. You've got a comic that's coming out. I actually like it. Not 100% proud of it, but I like but we'll see how it turns out. I never like anything that I do. That's the worst part. I'm drawn to doing all this artwork and writing, and I hate it as soon as it's done. Everyone's like, I love your work. Why do you think I have it on my wall? And I'm like, yeah, but I hate it. with the passion, and that's my problem. Apparently, I'm abusive to myself. So y'all aren't getting rid of me, right? At all. You're not. There's stuff coming. There's a lot coming. In fact, now I'm going to have a lot more time because these shows do take. Because again, I don't want to bring you trash, right? Donnie knows. Donnie's seen how much time I take getting into this stuff.
Bringing you trash is my job. Folks.
Exactly. That's why we have him.
That's the purpose of my channel.
Yeah, that's his channel. My stuff was never about bringing you trash. So now that I get that, I'm going to be producing so much stuff. And again, Donnie and I, we've talked about this behind the scenes. So again, Donnie's not going anywhere either. Again, you've got his show, and I'm keeping him around. I'm still part of the Texas Front Porch family. Like, as far as Texas is concerned, and this is the truth, I'm still part of the family. I'm still doing stuff with them. My position with them hasn't changed. The only difference is I'm not going to be broadcasting and creating my own podcast. That's all. That's the only change. And like I said, y'all ain't getting rid of me. I'm probably going to be seeing. In fact, you'll probably start seeing me a lot more next year because I'll be doing other shows as I create other books and other material. You'll see me probably
more
everywhere.
Guest spots.
Yeah.
And you'll still see him every now and then on Texas show, and I'm sure on Robin Brandy's and Chris's shows. And
yeah, because after the last show here on which is not next week but the following week, like that following Monday, I will make my official adieu on Texas Front Porch, and then
and then probably show up 2 weeks later.
Yeah, probably 2 weeks later. If he's like, "Hey, Jason, I my guest called in." All right, fine. That's what's going to happen too.
Yeah. And then you'll be like, "Oh, goodbye." And then people are going to be like, "Oh, what's going to happen next week?" Well, next week Jason's going to be on my show. Tune into my show next week, guys.
That's exactly what's going to happen. So, well, and again, it is like I'll be honest, I've been bummed the last couple of days. Like I have, right? I was talking to Donnie about this. Like I really want to do his show tonight because I know I'll end up laughing because I've been bummed because even though I know I'm doing the right thing, and I'm going to say it this way, there was a little like none of this is drama. I want everyone, if you talk to anyone or you hear anything, please understand, ain't none of this about drama at all. There's no drama as far as I'm concerned. Not me and anyone else, not me and the channel or like negative comments or like none of that has anything to do with this. It is literally, I just feel like I need to be doing artwork, and I've been fighting it for a while now. And it's like that's where I need to move back to. Like this was a season. I felt like I did what I was supposed to do, and now it's time to take that next step, and that's going back to doing art and books. That's all this is. Like I got no beef with anyone at all on any level. I just feel like this is what I need to do. I probably should have honestly done it months ago, but I was fighting to stay hold because I love doing this. I love y'all. Y'all are the best audience on the internet, and I've always said that, and I've always meant it. So, but I got to do what I need to do. So like I said, I've been bummed because I do love doing this, and it's been doing the cryptid podcast stuff like 3 years of my life. And then the thing is, I was actually going into an office every 2 weeks and broadcasting Saturday mornings, like 2 years before that. So, I mean, this is probably like 5 or 6 years of my life as a podcaster. I would have to actually go back and see when I started Vagabond Nerds. So yeah, I've been doing this for a long time, and so I'm bummed, but like God's actually, I didn't ask for a sign on this one. I was like, you know what? I talked to Donnie knows the whole story, but I was like, more stuff's popped up, by the way, but it's like. I was like, you know what, God, I understand. I know what you're saying because, I typed something out to a friend of mine and I'm like, that's way too smart. That's the Holy Spirit talking. And I was like, okay, never mind. That's my answer. I need to stop being a douchebag about this and do it. And so I wasn't looking for any kind of a sign or confirmation that I'd made the right decision. But like, as soon as I made that call to Doug Hychek, within an hour, I got confirmation that I made the right decision, and the confirmations keep coming in. So it's like, okay, God, I get it. I made the right decision. I'm just sad because I love doing this. Y'all are great. You really, again, please understand, if y'all weren't here, I wouldn't have been doing this nearly as long. Y'all are the best group on the internet, and I will seriously cut anyone who says otherwise. And Y'all are why I keep coming back. But it's like now I do need to go. But this isn't gone forever. Y'all, like I said, y'all are still going to see me. I'm belaboring the point. So I'm going to bid you all adieu. We got 2 more shows here, so
And guys,
we'll,
tune
be
in
around.
like an hour on my channel.
Mhm.
You will see us live there.
Exactly.
And oh boy, do we have a show prepared for you guys tonight.
Yes, we do. So yeah, go jump over to Donnie's channel. It's going to be fun, and we'll catch you later. Good night. Thanks for watching Jason McLean Questions Everything. We're live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central. Please share this video with your friends, then like, follow, and subscribe for more.